Welcome back to the FintechOS podcast. Evolve. Delighted to have my latest two guests on the show today. James Buchanan, the founder of Hidden Strategies, ex-Design It, ex-Wipro, ex-Aviva, and our first ever returning guest, Byron Levin, the head of pre-sales at FintechOS.
Thank you
both
very much.
Both in your own way, shaping the way financial services now are dealing with what is our subject topic today, of course, customer experience. So welcome to you both. Delighted to have you both here. Long history.
Great.
7, 8 odd years, I think we've known each other now. So
Indeed.
worked together in a few old shops of mine. Designed some great customer journeys, some great customer experiences in the world of financial institutions. But now you're also doing amazing things outside the industry. PepsiCo, Virgin, I won't steal all your thunder. I'm sure you want to tell a few stories. But I guess, James, we'll start with you. And I guess the opening question would be, what are you starting to see, firstly, I guess, outside of the industry of financial services around customer experience and innovation is starting to shape that customer journey, and then maybe bring it back into how you're taking those learnings from outside the industry and bring them into the world of banking and openly financial institutions and making those innovations and customer experiences far better.
All right. Well, thanks, Mark, and thanks for having me on. It's a real pleasure. But yeah, no. To take that question, I am fascinated by people that are using technology to solve genuinely knotty problems. It's a bit less interesting when people are just trying to optimize something that's already there. But when someone takes something that's genuinely difficult and then tries to make it a bit more easy to navigate, a bit easier to get to a better place, I think that's really exciting. And so yeah, we did a lot of work in travel, sort of back end last year, and we looked at a lot of different travel services. And there's one out there, Mindtrip, and it's a lovely little tool. They're using AI and they're using it to help you decide where might be an interesting place to go on holiday. Because I think there is a problem. If you start browsing down the list of places you could fly to, you pick a place, it's too expensive that day, you can't find a hotel. Like, where you go back to the beginning, what you really want to say is, where might be like that? I wanted to go to Berlin in May. What else might be like Berlin in May? And Mindtrip does that. And they'll sort of coach you through this lovely little chat. They'll come up with potential itineraries for you. And then you'll explore a few of them that are, and it'll surprise you, know. And so if you're thinking about traveling somewhere, it's a lovely thing, and it makes it fun. It's not just like a list of dates and locations.
Yeah. It's not having about 12 different websites open up trying to manage and build your own trip. You can just do it in this kind of conversational style.
Yeah, it's lovely, and it's complicated, and they make it fun. So I think that's one.
If only they paid for it as well, that'd make it even better.
Yeah, well, quite. But yeah, it's a very tempting thing. Like it makes you want to travel. But then the other one is closer to financial services. But it's like I like it, as I say, when people take on something that's hard rather than just doing what's already there. And there's a business called Sensilo, which has been founded recently by a friend, a guy called Adam Amos. And Adam's a legend, and he has seen the amount of stress in the UK about paying for education, paying for tuition fees, all of the scandals that be going on with the interest rates, stuff like that. Yeah. And he's looked at some of the challenges that people have thinking about education, if they're going to private school and then university, but also just saving for university.
Yeah.
And he's building financial planners to help people get through that. And I just think that's a lovely way of doing it. Rather than saying, hey, what's your future? Let's take something really deep and difficult and knotty and let's solve that in a really nice way. So I'd say Sensilo. I think that's an interesting business.
Yeah. And I guess, Byron, you that element of personalization that is included there, you're starting to see it in the world of financial services, banking, right?
Yeah. Well, I think you need to first think about what is an experience for someone. Like, what makes an experience, and what someone's trying to achieve. The traveling one, I think, is particularly interesting because it's like it used to be a very research heavy, and like you said, like all of the experiences are kind of the same. It's it's dates and times, and like some of the new experiences that are coming out now. You mentioned, it's like I want to feel like X in June. You know, I want to feel the sand and I want to feel the air. And then you get a service that goes and finds, oh, you might want to, maybe you want to go to the Maldives, and here are some options. And like, you're not searching for travel anymore. You're like designing your own experience that's coming. And I think these are like more of the direction that the world is moving into. And like moving a little bit more into a couple other examples I've seen in UK home, property searching, especially for new families. You want to search around, and then there's so many of the usual questions you're trying to answer. Where should you live? Are you close to a good school? What's the rating? And then we came across a real estate agent that had this integrated map that just pinpointed down exactly the areas you should live depending on nurseries and schools and school ratings. And that just didn't exist as an experience before. It doesn't actually exist anywhere else. There's only one place. And so like the whole experience of like, not a street that you want to live on, but like the area and the environment you want to find yourself in is just supported by this new experience. That was quite a couple of interesting examples that just came across recently. But looking a little bit more into financial services, I think we see some of the usual, or some of the leading suspects really kind of pioneering a lot of the new experiences or expectations of experiences, particularly Monzo as one example. I think they're one of the real leaders pioneering what a modern banking experience should look like for consumers, from basic things like adding pictures and names to your savings targets to just integrated experiences that kind of lead you through your daily financial services life, as opposed to some of the legacy type experience, which are very kind of transactional in nature, so I think they're probably one of the better examples.
I always like the when you demo FintechOS to people, especially in the mortgage segment, and we have that integrated view into Zoopla, and we always talk about when do people start looking for a mortgage? Is it because when they've found the house, or is it when they're looking for the house?
Yeah,
I always find that experience is always an interesting, and it gets such good feedback when.
Well, this is the question you have to ask is like, where does the experience begin, and like how do you then capture someone at that moment in time where they have that initial thought? Can you capture them there and take them through this, like you mentioned, like we call it, the home buying journey or experience? You don't want to just get a mortgage. You want to buy a house. You want to move in. You may want to get some pets. You may want to do all of these things. And actually, if you're a financial services provider, you now need to think about how do you deliver a solution to that person at that particular stage of their life and to the particular lifestyle that they live in. And there are a lot of parallels in mortgages and maybe in small business lending as well. I don't know if you see something similar in other kind of industries.
Yeah, well, I think one of the interesting things that I feel is that maybe there was a time when people were some of the financial services firms were sort of ambitious earlier in that journey. If I think back, Aviva did an advertising campaign with Adam and Eve back in 2016 that was about facing your future, and it was a big national ad campaign. They got a guy and a woman, dressed them up as they would be when they were old, and had them live as if they had saved the money that they are saving. And one of them had done all right, and the other one was like, this has not worked out very well. And I think the interesting thing about that, though, is they were trying to say at the time, like, they were trying to reach out to people that were not already thinking about pensions. Yeah. And I think one of the interesting things is that if I look at a lot of design work recently in financial services, a lot of it is for people that have already decided that they want to engage. Whereas I think this question about the house is super interesting. Like, when do people start thinking about their pension? When do people start thinking about investing? Yeah. And can you play a role as a designer or as a financial services provider, as an insurer? Can you play a role in provoking that interest, Yeah. I'm super interested to see what Monzo does next in that space. Like, I would love to see them be ambitious about waking people up, not just serving them once they're ready to engage.
Well, I think it's like a very interesting point you mentioned, like people who are already engaged. If you're not, how do you get the people that are not engaged? And for like pensions or savings or investing, it's usually quite a long-term endeavor, and
Yeah.
it's like it's difficult for a lot of people to see further into the future. Monzo actually launched this 1p savings challenge. I don't know, maybe you've seen it. It's
I've seen it, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, you know,
lovely.
such a simple yet effective concept for people who don't have a habit of saving. It's like, you know, you think, oh, everyone can save 1p a day. But then it's like it's just that hook that gets you engaged, and then you realize, and then you're like, oh, well, actually they're doing something that's quite useful for me. And so they build out kind of the stickiness of that relationship over time. And banking relationships tend to be very long, you know, very, very long.
I like how that's been tied into that purchase of a first-time buyer, and you know, actually saving for that deposit, and start to how quickly do you engage that first-time buyer on that savings journey, and so you capture what their ambition is up front, what kind of house you want to live, where do you want to live, and then it kind of works backwards. So right, if you want to fulfill that dream, this is the kind of level of deposit you need to start to working towards, and this is how we're going to help you achieve that. I mean, we've been doing a lot of work in the building site space, and that kind of concept. So you've almost, before they even reach an age to even buy it, you've already started to engage them in that life moment that is coming.
Yeah.
And I think that's super interesting, because I think one thing that we've seen again and again with some of these financial planning services is that people are terrified of them, right? Like it's genuinely scary to think about what might happen to you in 20 years' time. But if you can help people do that in a nice way, like we used to talk about, can you daydream about the future, and then let's work out the future you're going to have, right? That's so less threatening. It's so less anxiety provoking, and I just feel like there's just a ton of space to do more interesting work there. And if AI can be part of that, if that kind of personalization can lead to people seeing themselves, seeing their future develop, I think that can be really interesting.
Well, when you're like, I think as a provider, you need to think about like what's the nature of the relationship you want to have with your customers, and what type of experience can help you deliver this kind of engagement with your customers. If you want to build credibility with your customer, what kind of experience builds trust? What kind of experience builds different kinds of I forgot the word, like a culture, or like what kind of culture are you trying to deliver? Is it like a culture of speed? Is it a culture of trust? Is it a culture of care? And the experiences you design can then determine how customers perceive your brand. I mean, we saw it like in the investment management space. There was this big culture of, like speed to invest, open your account in minutes, just start investing thousands of pounds. And then the engagement was really high in the beginning, but the conversion was really low, because it's like a very big decision for people to make. And so actually experiences started, becoming a little bit more hybrid. They would sort of start digital, and then at some point you would want to speak to someone, understand this kind of, big life moment. Maybe you're investing your, entire life savings, and you don't want to just press a button and do that automatically. And so as an experience designer, you need to consider how you then create that right moment to build that trust, so that they do actually invest with you, and then you have a long-term customer. I mean, even in mortgages, you see it now. It's like you need to design experiences for brokers, because people don't want to make such a big decision on their own.
Yeah, but Byron, I love that point. Like, it's like the design needs to be appropriate to the weight of decision being taken, right?
Yeah.
And it's not
you said that much better than I could have.
I got to summarize.
He's a designer. What do you expect?
But not from financial services. But the other day, I signed up to trial a meditation app. Right, this thing is meant to be the most calming.
Being a founder leads you to those type of apps, by the way, right? It's the stress of being a founder. You must have a meditation.
I had a minute. I wanted to explore this thing. There was a free trial available, so I tried this thing out, and I went to sign up for it, and I started filling in the form, and then a little timer appeared, and it was counting me down, and it was saying if I did not complete the sign up within 10 minutes, then I would have to start it again.
That is no good for meditation.
I was thinking, this is not very calm.
No.
And I was just thinking,
Yeah.
like, and it's similar, right? It's like,
Yeah.
put all of your life savings down now. We'll enable you to do it in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, this does not feel right.
Yeah.
Let's do this in a measured way.
Yeah, it's interesting because in financial services, you always have this race to the speed of decision, race to speed of funding and money, and it's relevant for certain products. But actually, that kind of reflect moment, take a breath, have a think, especially when we're talking about level of investments you're talking about. I think it takes quite a bold kind of innovation to move away from the speed. I must do it now. In that, just because all your competitors are doing that. For somebody to pull back and go, you know what, actually, no, we're going to pull back on purpose. And I know you know there's a part of that story that I'd love you to tell in a minute, but that natural part, it makes you feel like there's a human element. There's a caring. There's actually, I'm just as invested in your decision as you are, and I want you to take that time.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like, it's you're showing the consumer that you understand them, what they're trying to achieve, and designing, like you said, the kind of appropriate experience. And the one you're kind of referring to is the one in years gone before. I was working on designing a investment management or onboarding experience where customers could kind of start, on an online experience. It's very engaging, has a lot of scale. But before getting to the point of making a decision, there was kind of like a intentional pause where they could then go offline and in the coming days, receive a letter in the post with a tea bag in true British form. Mm-hmm. and the whole concept was like, take a minute, think about your decision. It's a big decision. Consider it. And then they would come back, with this level of kind of like trust, and then make that decision. So you'd get a much higher conversion.
Yeah.
At the end, which is a much more long term.
So you drive a much higher conversion, and actually they'll probably invest more because there's some thought in it. Actually, you've built that trust with the consumer. Yeah. And actually, a race just to put some money down. If I put myself in the shoes of that customer, I would have put as little as I possibly could down, and I would have trialed it. Yeah. And I probably left it there. But actually, having a tea bag sent to me and go make a cup of tea on us kind of notion, I think it's quite novel.
It was kind of it was a bit of a novel kind of experiment really at that time. But I think now a lot of the reason for that is largely rooted in like confidence is sort of rooted in understanding and knowledge. Yeah. And now with access to information that everybody has, mainly through a lot of the new AI services or capabilities that may change over time. I don't know if you're seeing a lot happening in kind of the consumer brand space around AI, or I mean, in financial services, we're seeing a lot of like the early research moving to AI tools and agents. Yeah,
getting a few first use cases now come in, but in stereotypically for the world of banking, we're never going to be in the cutting edge of it. It's interesting with you working in different industries. You're probably seeing more innovative stuff and actually people implementing it.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's patchy, right? But it's definitely, there are parts of travel that it's built for AI, right? Like I talk about Mindtrip, and you can see that Virgin Atlantic have a concierge in their app now that's AI enabled. It's pretty nice. I think one of the interesting questions will be how some of the capabilities and some of the, I suppose, the expectations that have been set by people playing around with ChatGPT then show up in some of the more familiar places where they actually do their shopping. Now, I mean, I don't know. I still think if you're buying your groceries on a weekly basis, you're still going to buy it from a grocer. I think the interesting question is how does that AI show up in Ocado, in Tesco, to just make that a much more enjoyable, a much more inspiring, a much more, like just enable you to do more during your shop. I don't see a future at the moment where everyone's doing all their grocery shopping through a single platform. That seems crazy to me. So maybe more on the travel because you don't shop that regularly, but your things like your regular grocery. I'm just really excited to see what some of those stores make of it.
Yeah. Is there a like a blend between the type of experience we've been talking about so far and where is the customer's expectation going to be? So are you seeing that the customer expectation is still lesser than what we've talked about, or is it just people expect it now? That's the level. If you're not up to scratch, then I'll go next door. I'll go to the next person.
Well, I'd say one of the funny things. I mean, it's an obvious point, and obviously everyone in financial services will be familiar with this problem. The easiest company to be right now is a startup who's decided to design itineraries. You start trying to match those itineraries to actual flights on an actual flight booking platform, and then try and organize the actual hotel stays and have it all connect up with like a nice, neat, no drop-offs, no one losing their booking at the last minute. It's a lot harder.
Yeah.
So it's easy to be Mind Trip. It's a lot harder to work out how to be, a Mind Trip quality experience on top of a legacy stack.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably where the gap comes. People get used to, liquid fast exploration, but then it's a little more complicated to actually make the bookings.
Do you think there's maybe because like you said, everyone's going like the initial stage super fast, research is kind of really easy, but do you think there's also a risk that it's like there's just too much information for consumers to even understand? Like you go to ChatGPT or another service and they just like, I want to go to Brazil, and then they've got 7 pages, the whole history of South America before they can even understand what they want to do. Like, is it actually a good experience now, or like, how do you see that from a consumer?
Well, the way we've seen people using some of these tools in research is I mean the central conceit of it being a chat is what makes it comprehensible, right? Like no matter how much information there is, like a conversation, no matter how much experience you two have, there's only so much of it you can say at once. There's only so much of it I can take in at once, right? And that's the limiter. And I think AI, for all the things it may get wrong, that is something it does in a very natural way. Yeah. So I'm not sure it's an overabundance that's the problem. I think that for important things, people will, for a long time, struggle to trust it. And I think for a long time, it will struggle to deal with some of the integration into some of the systems that it actually needs to work with in order to get things done. And I think that's probably the bigger barrier for a while.
I like, we talked to a number of banks and financial institutions, and the subject of will always come naturally, and it's about what are the capabilities of the FintechOS platform around AI, and I always find it quite fascinating, depending on who the actors are in the room. But there's a whole bunch of AI use cases around just basically reviewing information and presenting it in a way that is fit for an underwriter or for a lender, or doing financial analysis and kind of automation. But then you get into kind of some more of the innovative stuff around, I want to launch a product to this type of segment. I want the product to have these type of features, or actually not even saying that, but what kind of features should it have to entice this audience and into this segment, and having that conversational tool, and then having a platform that will start to build the product for you based on 2 or 3 prompts, and then you say in this conversational style you can continue digging down, and that becomes you get product managers or product owners into that kind of conversation. They go, oh wow, because this takes weeks to put together these type of new product and procedure plans, but actually I can do it in this kind of style, and you can start not only giving me that insight around stuff I don't know, also you then start building the core product as well. That's cool.
I mean, this is what most people are asking us now when we're going to banks or insurers or other customers in financial services. They're like maybe last year the question was kind of like primarily efficiency driven. It's like, how can this help me be like a little bit faster, more efficient, the typical like automation story. But I think we've kind of like, we've crossed a bridge, and now the conversation is like, I know it's going to make me more efficient, but how can it also make me better? How can I get like new ideas for a product that I didn't think about?
Yeah.
How can I come up with new offers for this customer segment that I didn't think about before? And we just talked about kind of the limiting factor of individuals with these kind of capabilities. The limits are, largely infinite. You can come up with many, many, many more ideas than you could possibly come up with on your own. And I think that's going to unlock a new level of kind of creativity in how products are created and distributed.
And I hope not just creativity, but also reality, right? Because, we've all seen a lot of money invested in developing products that people do not go on to use, right? We have seen, it's probably more than a decade ago now, but that wave of kind of extremely configurable home insurance. Like, did consumers really want that? I'm not sure they did. Like, if companies had been able to prototype quickly, get things in front of customers quickly, without costing a lot of money, that would have saved an awful lot of investment. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited by that. Like, I guess, one of the things we talk to clients a lot about is the danger of getting their thinking stuck in the middle by having it kind of just live in decks and just live in theory. Like, we like real research with people. We like prototypes, and we like people to be super creative and come up with, impossibly imaginative ideas. We're not super bothered about those slides that kind of sit in the middle and kind of so more prototyping, all to the good.
I guess you always hear this buzzwords around like human centric across banking and other industries, and I think we've kind of started touching it already around where are those natural marriage points between whether it's an AI agent or it's an AI enabled platform or it's just a digital and still bringing that human touch point together. I mean, you've touched it a couple of times, and even you, Byron, around in banking, but that's not going away, is it? It's got to stay, the human element.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely something that's going to stick around for a while. I think the nature of these relationships are going to change, and like who owns the customer experience? Going back to like, where does the experience start? Yeah. Now we're seeing like customers are very, like their knowledge and understanding is increasing with the use of the AI tools. This is where like a lot of the research, the research phase is happening. And then the question is, who then owns that experience? I think just last week or this week, there was the first OpenAI insurance policy integration. So you go to OpenAI, I want to get a policy. There it is, all in. You don't need to leave that experience. So now the question is, who owns that experience? Because you're not just at the research phase anymore. Yeah. You're actually at like the purchase or whatever execution phase now. Yeah. And I think that's going to continue. So the question, like, do you build an experience that's integrated into some primary AI experience, or do customers still have multiple various experiences for other cases? I don't know. It's,
I think talking to banks and also where you're going to get the biggest successes is where you can enable both the customers and the institution with this level of AI and technology, but it also helps the sales agents and the back office folk be way more efficient themselves and give them the insight as well. Like, tell me something I didn't know. That for me is really, really powerful. How do you enable the branches still exist? How do you enable those folk as well? How can you switch between not just an omni-channel approach now, but it's an omni with an AI element channel? How do you start switching between them? How do you remain consistent? How can you start and stop and continue and take that cup of tea moment?
Exactly. Well, you're probably seeing a lot of like the agent experience optimization as well coming up now.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to Mark's question about human centric though, because I think there's a little bit of the industry that's perhaps tempted to imagine human centric as being without the humans in some places. Things that are boring, things that require a bit too much admin, perhaps they can just be dealt with by machines. But I guess I feel that there's been a deficit of engagement with some of these knotty questions. And I feel that they are sources of anxiety for people. And so I'd like to think that these new tools will be ways in which banks and other institutions can be more human. And I think perhaps even maybe if they have efficiencies in one place, shift more people to the front line.
Yeah.
I'd love
Yeah.
to see more people talking to other people,
Yeah.
enabled by great tools, right?
Yeah.
And so I suppose that's my hopeful thought about human centricity and how financial services might turn out. I know there's going to be thoughts about things moving the other way, automating more, making things frictionless. But to me, that world just sounds like a place where things happen without people realizing it, and some of the useful friction of people making decisions and figuring things out will be lost. So yeah, I'm on the human side.
Yeah,
of the
okay.
human
Yeah,
centric.
well, we talk about it a lot with mortgages, and then we talk about who, as a lender or bank or building society, then who is your primary customer? And of course, there's a customer, but when you talk about some products like mortgages, we talk about the broker is kind of like your customer. You need to design an experience for them because they are having this conversation with customers that's building that trust so that they can actually become a customer of you. And so you've got multiple customers you need to think about designing the right experience for. And again, that's kind of what you said earlier on. The experience needs to match the persona and what you're trying to deliver. So yeah, there's definitely a human role, but I think just the nature in which they engage is definitely changing. I don't think we can ignore that.
So all this is out there. You're seeing it in industries outside of financial institutions. We're seeing it certainly in banking as well. Let's lean into the negative, right? What's stopping people, right? So is it I don't know, outdated technology? Is it their own culture? Is it just some legacy stuff that's stopping people? I'll hold banking back for a minute. I mean, the people you engage with, possibly slightly different culture, maybe they're from banking, possibly, maybe more forward thinking, possibly. But what's stopping them is it the same problems?
Well, I think I don't know if it's exactly the same problems, but it's often similar patterns. And I think if you like, the fundamental pattern that gets in the way of this, I think, of making progress on some of these issues is people lacking a language or a shared framework to collaborate with people from a different group, right? And that could be, say the front office or the sales team talking a certain way, and the data team or the tech team wanting to define things in a different way. That can be a real barrier. That within banks, same exists within other kinds of businesses. But it can also be, if we look at there's a startup that we work with in the fertility industry. And they're trying to change the way the whole ecosystem works. Yeah. So they're super aligned internally. Yeah. What they've got to do is work out how to align between them, between clinics, between the NHS, between a whole range of, and to be able to explain to each of these people what they're doing and why some of these changes might be in everyone's interests. Yeah. This isn't a can we invent it in AI question. It's a can we create a shared way of thinking and talking and getting things down on paper that enables us to actually make progress on some of these questions. And I guess that's the fundamental pattern that we see again and again. It just looks a bit different in banking, looks a bit different in Fintech, looks a bit different in travel,
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think the fundamental approach to designing experiences as a way to achieve some kind of goal is still the same. I think we're just at a new... There's this new wave of AI capabilities that's kind of struck at this moment in time that's getting people thinking about many, many very real and important questions. And we shouldn't forget that it's only 4 years in, roughly, since, since the ChatGPT public moment. Yeah. It's only 4 years, maybe 5, you might argue. It's not a very long time.
Yeah.
And so I think the challenge is people figuring out what this change means for them. And that's going to take some time for people to figure out their own reality of what these changes mean for them and for their businesses. And then, as James mentioned, how do you then apply these capabilities to certain contexts or experiences when they do and don't make sense?
So you get kind of you fundamentally set yourself up culturally from an organisational point of view, speaking the right language, make sure everybody truly understands what they're trying to achieve, and then you kind of get yourself aligned, and then you look at maybe your technology stack and you go, you have that old crap moment. How the hell are we going to do this? How is this all this new age stuff going to fit into this legacy piece that's been hanging around for 70 years? I'm blowing the cobwebs off as we speak. And I guess platforms like FintechOS that you help implement, how they can start to shape and be that enabler for that change without having to worry about the legacy that's behind you.
Well, I think it's even more important in today's world in various industries that are heavily regulated. Of course, financial services is one of those, and a lot of experiences up until now have been largely sort of utilitarian in nature or quite fixed experiences because there was a lot of regulation around them. And so when you're a bank or a lender in this situation, you then need to look to the market to find suitable providers that can deliver this kind of capability in an enterprise way. And that's where I think we're probably moving to like a little bit more of a platform world than a kind of the typical point solution world, because you need some kind of more flexibility to deliver these solutions in a world that's changing so fast.
And continues to change.
And will continue, But I think the timing's quite good as well, because there's I think the Mills review is just being published this week, or it's kind of around about now, which is like the government response to how AI is affecting or might affect financial services. So I think coming out of that will perhaps be a set of guidelines or approaches that people can follow. And when people have, some kind of guidance or structure, it might help, things progress a bit more.
I can remember going back a few years now, James, being in a room with you back in Design It times, where you take a room full of stakeholders across a bank, from Exco down to Teller, right, the whole spectrum, and on a whiteboard, you effectively design out the world's your oyster, blue sky thinking, the whole lot. We start plan and build the optimal customer journey for whatever product it is, and people come out with all kinds of newfangled ways, which back then you'd think it's never going to work. But actually, it is your role to bring all that together to produce, I guess, a blueprint for the future state. How do you manage to do that across that state? Everyone's got to have a different view. Everyone's got to have different priorities. And then how do you manage the expectation of what is achievable versus what is, a future state that's, 3-4 years possibly down the line, maybe not so much now, but going back a few years. That's a hell of a skill, but getting people outside of that mindset, they only know what they know. So start thinking from a different lens, whether it's somebody in retail or from leisure, that type of experience. How do you bring that out? Or how did you bring it out? You did it all the time.
I guess it starts from the view that everyone in the room knows their business really well, and they have a good sense of where it's working and where it's not. And our job is, we do not come in as banking experts, you know that. We come in as people that want to just ask questions and say, so how does it work today?
Yeah.
Which bits seem to work pretty well? Where does it feel slower than it might? Where do you see opportunities to add more value for the customer? Where do you feel like you're missing a chance to do something great?
Yeah.
And together we build up a collective story. And you know what? Whilst if you ask everyone what's the one thing they want to do, they'll all have a different answer. But if you get all of the stuff together, their views of how the bank functions, you know what? It has a lot in common. And everyone will tell you that the 6-week period it takes to get a loan signed off is the thing that's really killing the bank. And if you can fix that, that'll be 80% of the value, So I think that's probably the thing, you ask the questions, you see the patterns emerge. You know what? There's a lot more agreement than you might expect.
How did you just taper people's expectations though? where people would come out with if it could go from A to Z here or there to there, was it about just it capturing that view versus the reality of the achievability of that?
Well, I think that I think this is a classic problem for anyone doing any kind of strategy work, and I think the shape of the answer probably hasn't changed that much in the last, I don't know, several decades. There's a McKinsey paper that puts it well. Probably want to be putting about 70% of your effort on Horizon 1 work, your core business now, 20% on Horizon 2, your next big bets, and about 10% on Horizon 3. And I think being able to sit with everyone in the room and say, let's be honest here, and say, what are the, changing that 6-week period, that feels pretty Horizon 1 to me. Going after that big new market that's adjacent to the one you're already successful in, that feels Horizon 2. But you only get to try out a few of the things in Horizon 3. And I guess that's, going all the way back. People will often want to talk about the Horizon 3 bit, but you've got to put it in context that 90% of what you're going to be spending your money on, if not more, let's be honest, is Horizon 1 and 2. And I think getting that reality and then finding the agreement there, that's all right. People get it. It takes a few cycles. You don't try and do it all in one workshop.
Yeah, I think it's exactly right. I mean, we kind of sit and talk a lot about the future of customer experiences and AI and how it's going to shape experiences, and we then actually get, you have to get quite practical with a lot of the market has what you might consider relatively basic needs, but those needs have a very real business impact on them. If they can just unblock that 6-week approval process for a loan, they can increase their lending, and that's it's going to have a positive economic impact on the bank. So I think sometimes we need to, probably stop some of the blue sky thinking and just.
Did you say probably you?
Well, I was thinking about you, but there are actually some very real needs that you can kind of. You don't need to look so far out, but there's some very real value that can be captured. We're talking about value creation and capture earlier on. That can be captured for this kind of tier of banks and lenders and building societies, just by enhancing some of their core operations.
Yeah, and it's a pretty good clue where you're going to find the agreement as well, because if it's causing a problem for lots and lots of people in the bank, then they're all going to agree they want to fix it. And because it's causing a problem for all of them, there's going to be a ton of value in fixing it. So, to an extent, it does it itself. You just got to ask the questions.
Yeah, it's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Even from, the 6, 7, 8 years ago when we were in an old shop working together, things have moved on so much now, and technology platforms have become such enablers of this, the ability to integrate with vast amount of third parties, the elements of the data orchestration that can go in, and the insights that can be provided out of it for these types of journeys. I mean, even from that has moved on so much now. So to have a platform that can enable that, whether it's a mortgage journey, whether it's an SME loan journey, whether it's a travel site, if your platform, you haven't got a platform that enables that, I feel you might be kind of living in the dark ages a little bit.
Well, if you don't have a platform with this kind of capability that can connect to just about any third-party service you need, it's going to be very difficult to design and implement this kind of experience that can really unlock this kind of business value, let alone take advantage of a lot of these new AI capabilities. So you have to have a platform with a data layer or data platform in place that can expose those capabilities. So you can then build these, the right products or solutions or offers and experiences on top of that. I think without that, it's
It sounds complicated. So I'm not a developer. I'm not that way inclined, believe it or not. I'm really not. But it sounds complicated, right? So if you're talking to a bank or a building site or maybe a smaller bank that don't have vast amounts of engineers and developers, and I think, oh my God, how the hell am I going to do this, right? And we talk about this low code, no code element, which still kind of sounds a little bit complicated. How the hell am I going to manage this? How do I start to own these experiences and these journeys myself, rather than have to rely on other people to manage it for me? Because that's cost. That's a lot of cost.
Yeah, well, I think you've got to start again at the business value of what you're trying to do and achieve. What's the solution you want to deliver? How do you, through what experience do you want to deliver that solution? And this kind of platform capability should enable that. And that platform then kind of abstracts away that technical complexity.
Mm-hmm.
So you really should just be having kind of business value focused conversation.
But I tell you what has changed a bit, Mark. That yes, the tech has changed, but organizations' understanding of tech has also changed. Like even in sort of smaller financial institutions, you've got people working there who have been through a few of these before. Right? They know what can work. Yeah. They know what might go wrong.
Yeah.
So there's that maturity there, and I think also on the platform side, and there's probably I think some of those platforms appear a bit more legible. Like it's easier to map into blueprints and work out where they fit, what processes they support than it might have been in the past. So I feel that combination of kind of like embedded institutional knowledge in the banks and organizations and the ease of use of some of the platforms.
Customers
helps each other out.
I think you're right. Customers' knowledge is improving, and we shouldn't underestimate the.
When you say customer, you mean a bank?
A bank, not like an end, but the bank and the internal users. They know their business very well, and we shouldn't underestimate their understanding of technology either.
Mm-hmm. I think you mentioned earlier on, James, about the idea of being able to prototype really quick and kind of do that test and learn piece. And I think that's incredibly valuable for any business, right? Because if you're looking to go to a new market, looking to launch a new product, and you just want to see, you want to just get the flavor, right, and get that initial feedback. But if you're is that as difficult as just launch a new product? You have to have the technology to enable the ability to quickly spin up a prototype, an MVP, quickly test and learn, and then shut it down if it doesn't work, or then to build upon it. If you don't have that flexibility, that agility in a platform where whether you build a fully fledged product or a pilot, it's the same amount of cost, same amount of energy, effort, still takes 6 months, and you lose that market pace. That's really difficult. Do you see it in your? Do you see the technology there to be quite agile outside of financial services?
Well, we go when we say prototype, we mean everything from a paper prototype that we want to put in front of customers and have them just make sense of, to a mock-up that we put on Instagram to see how people react to it, to I was once designing a kids banking product, and we mocked it up with a fake e-money, with a rough e-money account and a couple of devices, but there was nothing solid there. And then by the time you actually get to build the thing, you've been through maybe 5 progressive versions of it. So I think when people say prototype, they've got to be, what fidelity are we talking about? We like to go through all the fidelities, and we tend to find that each cheaper one that you do saves you money on the next one. So I think I'm expecting to go through 2 or 3 rounds of prototyping before we get anywhere near a live system. But I completely agree. If you're able to go from that kind of like, relatively rough alpha kind of prototype to something live pretty quickly, that would be the difference between, and I think in a lot of organizations, that would be the difference between the project happening and not happening. Because what you don't want is a massive step up from it cost you, 100K to do one prototype and 5 million to do the next stage. That's a very difficult business case to
you lose
sell.
all momentum.
We think about it from a product perspective. You mentioned earlier on the kind of universal home product, like very flexible insurance product that if it takes you a very long time to do the R&D and deliver that product, you can only do that so many times. But this is why you need, when the world is changing at the rate that it's changing now, you need the ability to iterate through various products, product types, product variations, offers, bundles of products or solutions. So then, if the cost and effort is not so great, you can scale that up until you find the right combinations that work. If you can only do that once in a year, then of course it's going to take you ages, because you're going to try and get it perfect before you launch it, because you can never change it again.
And the worst thing is to get that one thing away, you've had to get so much senior buy-in as you go. You can't really then row back and say, I'm not sure it was right, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it creates all the wrong incentives.
Yeah.
Really difficult to fail. If
Well,
it
it
costs
just-
you a
Yes,
lot.
the
It ruins your
incentives,
credibility
Yeah,
and your momentum.
completely.
And I just think in the world of financial services where you are, it's such a competitive environment, and you're always trying to find that USP and what is your edge, and that usually is some form of feature of some sort,
Yeah.
right? Or it's some form of bundling together. We talked about, actually, what you've got that in that life
Yeah.
moment. How can you bring 3 or 4 products
Yeah.
together? But if you can't be agile enough to push that into the market really quickly, you've missed the boat. And
Yeah.
if you're not doing it, your competitor down the road is doing it.
Yeah, and it could be just a very, it could be like a cashback. It'd go,
Yeah, it's just a feature.
we
Yeah.
have £100 cashback and there's no conversion, but no, can you just change that to 110? Can you change that to 150? And then all of a sudden, maybe that's the difference,
Yeah.
but you don't know if you can't test that out very quickly.
And then having the data analytics behind it that helps you enable that decision. Because if you don't know where the drop-offs are, where people are skipping that or stopping at that element, and you can't then feed that back into a loop of continuous improvement.
Yeah.
Again,
Well, not to take it back full circle to AI, but then you have your agent, which is like, hey, what's working here?
I did
What's
that on
not
purpose, by the
working?
way.
What can I not?
see where I was going. Yeah.
See the hidden spaces. See the white space in your proposition that you haven't. That's what's going to help people get better. At least that's what I.
And ultimately, what underpins all of these experiences really is this currency of data, right? So it's always, I just call it a currency now because I think it's worth more than money. So if you can use it correctly and you can drive insight out of it, the world's going to be a better place. And we talk about AI so much, but if it's not powered by good, reliable, clean data, then you're not going to get the right outcomes. And institutions we all work with sit on so much data that can drive these experiences and these insights and solutions, and can almost second guess what you already want. I know there's an element we won't get into, the kind of trust in it, but ultimately that is the power of it. If you sit on a platform that can deliver,
I think if people get it right, there's of course a lot of value in that. There are a lot of questions around who owns what and when, and how the regulations on that might evolve. But I think it's pretty well understood and accepted that if you can make sense of the data you have available to you, a lot of these tools just amplify the effect that might have. So I think there's a lot of value. I mean, it's pretty well understood that there's a lot of value there for the people that can deliver the right infrastructure to extract the value from the data that they have.
I still go back to talk about one of the best experiences I ever had with the bank. I know I wanted to get the story in because I know you'll love it. Back when I was a kid, my dad had worked for NatWest for
Great.
he was a lifer, like 40 odd years, and I did my stint at NatWest as well. So shout out to them. And he signed me up to a kids account, right? And the first thing that NatWest did was they sent a ceramic pig. It was in a nappy, right? I forget what its name was. I'm sure people will remind us.
It wasn't Pepper.
It wasn't Pepper. It wasn't Percy. But I think it would have been a very old-fashioned name back in the 70s and 80s. So it's a ceramic money box, a pig, and it sticks with me now. And I'm, touching nearly 50. So going through a few years, but that experience sticks with me now. That I had this money box from NatWest, put pounds in or whatever it is back then. But ultimately, then when you became a teenager, you upgraded your account and you got the next pig, and then you got the next pig after that, and you end up with a family. So I had the baby one and the brother, and then you finally got the mother and father pigs, working your late teens into the 20s, and it grabbed me. And even to this day now, touch 50, my main bank account is NatWest, mortgage NatWest. The loyalty that simple thing did for me, and then obviously I pass it on to my children and so forth. But it's simple things like that, and there's no AI in that.
Yeah.
There's no, but it's a bit like a teabag story.
Yeah.
That's what hooked me.
Look, I don't think there's any doubt that if an institution, be they financial or anything, can play a really big role to help you out at either an early, formative or stressful time, they're going to have a connection with you. Like my bank account is with the bank that I banked with when I had a small business in 2002. And we had an amazing bank manager who went out of his way to sorted a few things out for the business, sorted out a mortgage out for me, and I've not even thought about shifting ever since. I mean, it's not a pig. But it was a moment I can remember the first time I met him. I know exactly what that was like. I mean, imagine if moments like that get lost over time.
I know.
You know, I had probably the anti version of that, which is like at some point I had the same bank account for as long as I can remember, and then at some point I was like, I'm basically getting nothing from this experience, and so I moved. It's like, why would you stay to one of the leading banks now, which is like the experience is just so much better. So like these things are usually like there's a slow transition.
But I think it's got to depend a little bit on the bigness of the experience. I think the size of the experience. I'm sorry.
Oh, we can stick with bigness.
And if we've got I just to play on the kids bit a little bit, like you got the pig for the bank account. I'm still surprised that insurance firms and banks don't do more around early families. You know, there's a number of things that are going on at once. You might be moving house. You just had a kid. You might need a new car. You got to think about the kid's future. You got to think about your own future if anything should happen. Like, that's a lot of knotty things all together at once. And other than Adam, who's trying to do something on the education side, I don't see a lot of great early family financial propositions.
Yeah.
It's I
think that's a big opportunity.
I think you're right.
It's interesting because you lead me on, right? So we're coming to a close of the podcast, and you lead me on to what I always like to finish with, which is this kind of forward-looking view around what's coming up. And I'll start with you, James, because just across the industries that you work in, what are the kind of emerging technologies or even the capabilities that you are most excited about in the terms of in the next 2 or 3 years that's coming over that horizon?
I think I'm gonna say there's an ambition that I see with some of the clients we work with, and I love that ambition. It goes back to what I said at the beginning. It's when they stop thinking, how can we do what we do most efficiently? How can we help our customers think more imaginatively about this space that we're in? And like my wife has a fashion label. I love it when you see fashion retail reach out and help you think about what goes with what. I love the way that fashion retailers will bring in social media in a smart and curated way. I love it when I see a grocer, a supermarket pull in recipes from other places. I love the menopause work that Ocado have been doing. I love it when stores, when companies are just that bit more ambitious about what they're putting out there. And I think that, it's not a technology, but it's just, I think companies are looking at AI, they're looking at, as you say, the data they've got on their customers, and they're saying we can play a bigger role here. And I'm hoping that some people in financial services will be looking at, say, early families or big moments when things are getting a pretty knotty and difficult, and you've got a lot of decisions to make. And I'd like to think that people will be ambitious in those moments.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, and I think ambition plays a very big part, and I guess we're starting to see it a lot in our world. So, as the first ever returning guest to the sofa, I'm going to let you have the last word. So, given everything we've spoken about, what's if you're a bank or a financial institution sitting here or watching and listening to this, what would be Byron Levin's, one piece of advice you'd give for a bank looking to start that kind of journey?
Well, I think James really kind of touched on a key point here.
You can't steal his one. You got your own one.
I was just taking notes. I was about to say exactly this. No, but I think principally this idea of creating the right proposition, which might be one or multiple financial products kind of blended together to address the needs of a group at a particular lifestyle or stage is what these organizations should be thinking of. A new family has a set of needs, and it's not just one product. It's probably a combination of products and services that a financial services organization, bank and insurer can deliver to them at that point in time, or a small business that's maybe just trying to expand has another set of needs. And how do you really take, it's not just like, here's our business account and some dedicated relationship manager. You need to go like a little bit deeper into designing a proposition for that group. So I think the more they think about that and kind of arm themselves with the right infrastructure to deliver that kind of proposition, I think that's kind of the general direction of travel. Outside of that, though, I do think there should be a big debate of like who owns the ultimate customer experience, especially with these. Mostly these big AI services integrating these experiences into their primary kind of workspace. So I see like more and more of that happening, like Stripe integration into OpenAI, insurance integrate. It's already happening on the ground. And so I think there's like a big ground up movement that's just going to force this thing to continuously happen. And then you have the question of like who ultimately owns the customer experience and what does that do to a whole brand narrative, and like what does that actually mean? So I don't have an answer, but that's just where I see things kind of moving, and it'll be interesting to see how that evolves.
Fantastic. Well, look, thank you both for coming on. Really appreciate it. James, where can the viewers and listeners find out a bit more about Hidden Strategies?
Oh, just come check the website out. Come find us on LinkedIn. We'd love to have a chat. Anyone that's got an interesting question, we'd love to get into it.
Fantastic. Excellent. Thank you both.
Thanks
well,
for having
me. Come back maybe a third time, maybe a second time. Thanks, everybody.
Loved it.
See you next time.
Thanks, Mark.